Hey guys, good morning. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It's 5 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. I want to talk about Donald Trump and his statement that all schools need to open, that him and his administration is going to be very tough and deal with any states, any towns that decide to keep their schools closed in the next month, this fall. Um, he said that any schools, any jurisdictions that decide to keep their schools closed will be doing that just purely out of political motivation. So I want to talk about that. I kind of agree with that. If if you make a decision about the schools being keeping your kids home without any prior, without using any other input, any other information, where your state is at. Just for instance, yesterday, or the day before yesterday, Monday, here in Connecticut, it was the first day since March that we had no deaths from coronavirus. We're still doing very well here. And if you're not taking into account other considerations, how many kids per classroom, the spacing inside, are the kids' temperatures going to be taken? Is their health going to be checked on a weekly basis? How far apart will they be sitting? What's the curriculum? What's the overall protections they're using? What are the strategies they're using in the schools to protect these kids? And then what's the information as to each school, each individual school? How many cases in town? How many cases in the state? This stuff all needs to be taken into consideration. If you're not taking that stuff into consideration, then it is a highly political choice. Then if you're just pulling your kids out without any of this information, you're probably erring on the side of safety, which I would imagine, I don't have any kids, but I imagine that's what some parents would do. And I can completely understand that. So if that stands to reason, if you're basing your decision by keeping your kids out solely on a political, or if towns and cities and states are closing the schools without taking any of this information into account, wouldn't it also stand to reason that Trump demanding that all schools open or be punished without any information, without taking into consideration any other factors, wouldn't that also be a totally political choice? The fact that Trump is saying that all schools must open or be punished, he's not taking into consideration any other factors, states, towns, what the coronavirus rate is. He's just solely basing this on they need to be open, kids need to get back to school. So, if anything, it would sound like he's making more of a political choice by saying that. He's not taking into account any other factors. And instead of erring on the side of safety and caution, he's insisting that all kids go back to school. Now, as we all know, these classrooms are breeding grounds. When these kids are spending, 7 hours a day, 20, 30 kids all packed into a classroom, that's a breeding ground for this virus, but that's not what Trump's taking into account. So the fact that he's saying that if states, these jurisdictions are going to close schools, and that would just be a totally political choice. Conversely, the same has to be true. If he's saying that all schools must open without taking into account any of these factors, then without a doubt, the same thing has to be true, that he's making this as a purely political choice by opening all schools. It's a purely political choice. He's not taking into account any other factors. Are they taking temperatures before the kids go in? Are they taking it state by state to see if some states are, as we all know, some states are lower in coronavirus than other ones? Is he taking any of that into account? No. So, therefore, his choice to open all schools is purely political. It has nothing to do with the safety of the children. It's pretty much just throwing that out the window. I imagine their one argument might be, well, the kids, for their mindset, for their fragile psyches, they need to get back to school along with their other fellow school children. Their fragile minds can't handle being at home. These are the same people that were buying their kids bulletproof backpacks a couple of years ago, that had no problem sending their kids. These kids know what's going on with the school shootings, the dozens of school shootings. A lot of these kids were terrified to go back to school. But now all of a sudden, these same parents are worried about their fragile psyches. It's going to damage them if they stay home away from their little friends. It'd be much better if we send them back into school with the coronavirus so that they'll catch it there and bring it back home and infect the whole family. But Trump will get reelected. My point here is, for Trump to say that closing schools would be just a political choice, a political statement. It'd be a choice just made out of political considerations. Conversely, it has to be true for the opposite. For him saying that all schools must be open without taking into account any other factors, that's a purely political choice. It's basically saying that the kids' lives and their families' lives don't matter. As long as they get back to school, as long as their parents go back to work, and as long as he gets reelected, that's all that matters. If one's true, the other's true. If it's a purely political choice to close school and without taking into account any other factors, then the opposite has to be true, conversely. If he's saying that all schools have to be open without taking into account any other factors, and obviously he hasn't. We're a month or two away, and he's saying all schools must be, have to open up. It doesn't matter what state, what town, doesn't matter what, that they have to take temperatures, nothing else taken into account. They just have to open. That's got to be a purely political choice, putting Americans' children's lives at risk for his benefit. It is what it is. All right. You guys have a good Wednesday.